Welcome back, Quest Giver. This is DMG and DM Scotty, and this video is about how you can reuse the same monsters over and over again effectively in your game.
If you're looking for adventure, grab the modules each month to support the channel and play the campaign with your gaming group. You're sure to get hooked on adventure.
Hey friend, I hope you're enjoying these videos, and I hope you'll support us on our site, questgivers.com. We have all the modules for this series, the North Road series. We're also working up to our Kickstarter September 1st, so I hope you'll visit questgivers.com and check out all the stuff we have on there now. We have some DM tools. We actually have minis on there now, so really cool. And we have a new NPC, so there's lots of stuff going up, always going up on the site. So check it out and help support Quest Givers.
When you're playing a lot of games like we have, and we've been playing for decades, and this is particularly for new players, but veteran players will understand this as well, you rarely see that people will reuse monsters. They tend to use the same monsters at a certain level and then, move up into the more interesting monsters. But you rarely see that people will continue to use the same monsters. They always want to be like this diversity of different monsters that are going around. But this video is about how can you actually use the same monsters over and over and over again in your world and actually make it fun and interesting. So Scotty, where would you start? Why would you do something like this?
Yeah, I think it really makes the world come alive, and it builds investment in the world, because the things that you're seeing are having callbacks, right? I really like that. And the difference between, like, just keep reusing, say, goblins, okay? You keep reusing goblins, okay? And they seem to be, they're just seem to be the same in your game, right? And that's not that interesting. But the way Gareth and I think about it, when we reuse these monsters, we have a goblin-like monster called a Drek, which is this kind of cave-dwelling, bat-faced, spined, goblin-like creature, right? Albino, pretty cool stuff. But we keep having them come back in the module, but it kind of forces us to think of them in different ways, right? So how are we going to put this in the module where it's just not, oh, another Drek? It's, here's a Drek and they're doing something interesting, or there's something interesting about the Drek, or why are they doing what they're doing? So the players are getting that kind of recognition of seeing that, oh, this is something we've seen before, and they're doing something different than they've done before. What is it? And that kind of draws you into the story, right? So I like that aspect of it,
Well, I mean, it's like, imagine Dune without the worm. If it only had one worm, there weren't multiple of the things. It's like Lord of the Rings without the orcs. If you just had one orc encounter and then you didn't see any more orcs through the rest of the 3 books, you wouldn't have that sort of build up in terror. The leader orcs and the different variants of orcs that are in the actual books. This is the same sort of principle. You're building the world by showing that these creatures are part of the environment. They're part of the world and they're everywhere. And like, as you say with the Dreks, another aspect that people don't think about is the financial aspect of playing the games with minis. If you've got one set of minis that are goblins, continue to use goblins. You don't have to go out and buy new minis, right? So, people then used to seeing goblins, but use them in different ways. And like in the previous video where we talked about monsters, a problem to solve, you can then change the aspect of what these monsters are and what they're doing, what level they're at. Is it a shaman of the goblin tribe? Is it the goblin king? Is it, how are the other goblins reacting to this? Is this a holy ground for them? These are the things you can start to think about and build that into the story. Now, one of the things that we do is we don't build our modules around a monster. We build our modules around a story, and we happen to put monsters in that form barriers to getting things done and problems for the players to solve. That is a very different mindset to what you tend to find, where a module is just built around a specific monster, and then it's just like, well, this is just a way of getting people to a bag of numbers to roll some dice. It needs to be more about the story so that people engage and invest in the story, and then they're also investing in the world that you spent some time creating.
Oh yes, definitely. And another big callback we have is we have this crazy creature called the Sarlacarn, right? And it's this big bag of bile that lives under the ground. It has these tendrils that come up with mouths, spiky mouths on the end, and then the big moth, bursts from the ground, trying to swallow anyone it can. These things are crazy, dangerous and scary, especially since they can pop up anywhere out of the ground, essentially. If you're camping somewhere or something, they can come out. So we've got, the module with like the initial thing. You see this, you have an initial encounter with it. And then, you see it in different places throughout the campaign, used in different ways. So it's really interesting. There's also another mini quest we're writing that has to do with an enormous Sarlacarn that had died and became a lair in itself for something else, right? So yeah, all these different ideas that are changing up. And we've got, in the Dark City, a Sarlacarn is actually captured and used to like terrorize the populace. So yeah, just great ways that you can reuse monsters and give a callback, but and the players are like, know how dangerous these things are. And so like for Dark City, where they captured this thing, it's like, wow, if they captured this thing and can keep it, like they must be really powerful, because these things are crazy dangerous, and big. So it's fun to keep reintroducing monsters in the same way. And you can do this in your own games, with goblins. Just change up what they're doing, how they're doing it, what they use, weapons, that kind of thing. So just keep it interesting. Reusing monsters, keeps it interesting. And like Gareth was saying about the Lord of the Rings, kind of first you see them, in the small bands of orcs, that they're fighting. Well, they go in Moria, and it's not a small band, but they have to fight the orcs in there, and then it's then the Uruk-hai come, and they're like a huge army of orcs, so it's like just keeps ramping up. You can do that too. You can keep ramping up the danger, as the players get more experienced and they get stronger. You can ramp up the monsters, like it's no longer a little tribe of goblins, it's 1,000 goblins or something, with a big leader kind of crazy goblin. So yeah, you can keep adding to the monsters and ramping up the danger, even as the players get better and better.
Yeah, and going back to the point in Lord of the Rings, you find orcs that are riding wolves, so you're actually you're starting to introduce elements of the culture of these creatures into religious, economic, political, all these as you begin to fight your enemy, you tend to learn more about your enemy. As Sun Tzu, kind of know your enemy, but that's important because it makes them more realistic when you know that there's an actual thing that they're fighting for or doing. And sometimes you can actually, I've done this in games where you can switch it, where you realize you're actually fighting the wrong side. They're actually the good guys and you are the bad guys, or you're working on the side of the bad guys, but because they're greenskins, you're a little bit racist. So you've been killing the wrong tribe of people, you should be helping them overthrow the evil king. You just didn't know. You can do that, and that sudden realization when the players realize that they're the bad guys, you'll see a big shift in your game. Like now that's like people will, now they want to, they don't want to do what they were doing before, and the whole dynamic of the game shifts and changes. So you can do very interesting things playing this way and doing this kind of stuff. The familiarity sort of helps the players prepare for the future. So for instance, like the Sarlacarn, where they keep seeing the thing, they begin to, well, maybe we should get a few weapons that will help us with this creature because we're encountering them all along. And I think one of the other things is theme. The Sarlacarn for us in Dark City is thematic. You've encountered it 3 or 4 times in the campaign so far. So when you see it being used as a torture device, you know what the people are going through. So as a player, you're kind of like, okay, I can understand why this is bad. and you kind of empathize with the people that are being tortured this way more so than you would if you'd never seen the creature before, because you know what they're going through, you know what it can do. So yeah, how else have you used monsters thematically?
Monsters can be used, to terrorize the players, or give information, or all kinds of different. They can, all kinds of delivery things for your story, right? I think that's so fantastic. And I ran a game, a horror-themed game, a modern horror-themed game called Aqualung, and the guy, they were trapped in this kind of death trap dungeon. It was a sewer, and the sewer was slowly filling up with water. Well, the psycho killer that was in there with them had like a high-tech wetsuit on and this like blade, that he was going around murdering people with, as well as the deadly traps in there. But yeah, it was more about him terrorizing the people, and so he would keep making callbacks, because there's only one thing. It's only one monster, right, in the dungeon. It's the psycho killer, and he had a secret door we could go between the different sections of the underground of the sewer, so he could beat them anywhere, and they're trying to struggle with the water. The water's at their, it's raising up, it's at their waist, it's at their chest, so they're practically swimming at some point, where he's, it's much easier for him to get around. So they've got that difficulty, and they've got the fear of drowning. So they've got that difficulty where it's actually easier for him. So yeah, it's like using a monster to terrorize, and like for that kind of game, take out one person and the rest of the group is freaking out. Oh my gosh, and they see how deadly this thing is. It just murderizes somebody. That's just fear, and he's taunting them and chasing them around and that kind of thing. So yeah, you could use the different monsters, bring callback thematically, and that's an example of where it was just in the same adventure, where the monster kept coming back and killing them in interesting ways. It wasn't always just with his his axe spike or whatever. He had different traps and that kind of things he could spring on them. So it just made it really interesting as far as the players, the terror and the players, as they try to deal with this psycho killer.
Fantastic. There's actually a playthrough on Scotty's the DM's Craft channel. That's an interesting watch. I suggest you have a look at that. We'll put it up there as a link and you can check it out. Well, thank you very much for joining us on Quest Givers once again. Check out our website, questgivers.com, where you can purchase modules, minis, quick quests, RPG tools, and all kinds of other things that help support the making of these videos for free on YouTube for you to consume. And we'll see you in the next one.
Check out our interesting stuff on questgivers.com.